Okay, let's talk now about impact investing and sustainable financing. Now, this session will lay out the value that investors are looking for and the stories, this is crucial, the stories that must be told to drive developers' interest. The whole issue of narrative comes in to this industry in so many different ways. And I think it's interesting that storytelling, in a sense, is also part of this. We've got a great panel and a great moderator for this panel. So can I bring her on first? Mary Harris, please welcome her. Consulting Director, Destination, M&C Saatchi, Director, Bird Global Advisory. Take care, all yours.
Can you hear me? Yes, I think you can. Fantastic, lovely to see you all here today. And I've got a fantastic panel to bring up. So I'm gonna invite everyone up to join me now. We've got Nikolaos, who is the Head of Tourism at ICF. We've got Suzanna, who is the Head of Amadeus Ventures. We've got Julia, who's partner at Clearsky's fund. We've got Nico, who is co-founder of Zeero. And then we have Bobby, who is the founder of Roch Ventures. So I think with the biggest panel on during the conference, very exciting. I actually thought that I was going to have to get mic'd up, but it was all right. They got us an additional mic, so that's perfect. So really excited to talk to everybody today. And I think over the last kind of day or so, we've heard a lot about the environmental imperative of sustainability within the travel trade. But of course, that's accompanied by an equally important economic imperative. And that's really driven by growing consumer demand globally for sustainability. In fact, when we were talking earlier, about 80% of consumers actually say that sustainability is really important to them, and about 60% are actually willing to pay more for sustainability options. So it's really clear that sustainability is a huge growth driver for the travel and tourism industry, and something that everyone should be investing in. So I think talking about impact investing and sustainable financing is really key for this conference. And being relatively new to the subject, first of all, I'd actually like to ask you, Bobby, to unpack these terms for us, just in the context of travel. What do they mean? Are they different? Are they the same thing? Just tell us about them.
They are different, but first of all, I would like to start by saying that sustainable travel is the future of travel. We are not going to consume travel the way we were consuming travel before COVID. There is a very strong awareness from the young generation, which means the new travelers,
yes,
that the impact of the way they're traveling is now crucial.
Yes.
Now let's define what impact investing mean and what sustainable investment mean. For me, they are different.
Okay.
Impact investing is something measurable, it's mission driven. Like we would like to fight against mass tourism, we would like to protect social communities, those type of things. Sustainable travel is more about ESG criteria. It's thinking or saying that beyond the classical investment, there are environmental, social, governance criteria that are very important. I would like to take one very concrete example of how we are looking at companies now at Roch Venture, when we are thinking of what we call Article 8 SFDR, which is a taxonomy that Europe have put in place to make investment more sustainable. One thing very concrete, which is beyond what we are saying now about impact investing and sustainability. The difference between gender pay.
Okay.
It's an insult to invest in company where women are paid less than men. So for example, at Roch Venture, this would not happen. We would not invest in company with gender pay gap.
Okay.
That's a very concrete, sustainable investment, because sustainability, as I said, is part of the ESG framework. Now, impact investing, and I would like to be very honest with the room. I mean, even though I started by saying that sustainable travel is the future of travel, it's not so easy to find sustainable technology that are really, as of today, bringing a strong impact. There are a lot of words, there are a lot of talks, but very concretely speaking, I have not yet seen unique technology that are completely changing the industry.
So we're at the start of the journey.
We are, but nothing will stop this. But I would encourage the entrepreneurs in the room to start thinking of technology or product or solution that would really have an impact. Because all the big corporations, they are begging to find those solutions. And we'll talk later about why the big corporations are begging to find those type of sustainable solution.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. And when we were talking previously, you actually spoke about this as being the fifth industrial revolution, which I loved that term.
Yeah, so we are pushing the concept of travel and tourism entering its fifth revolution. So to make it very simple, we had, and I have two great women today that can confirm what I'm saying. One of the biggest revolution was the GDSs. So in the 80s in Europe, the fact that, I mean, the distribution of the travel industry. Then you had the low-cost carrier, the fact that now you can travel for a very small amount of money anywhere.
Yeah.
Then you had Booking.com, so the OTA revolution, the fact that anyone can go on the website and book a trip and travel. Then you had the Airbnb revolution. And now we are entering the fifth revolution. And the fifth revolution have two drivers, technology and sustainability. Those are the two drivers shaping the future of the industry.
Okay.
That's our concept of the fifth revolution.
No, that's fantastic. I think it makes it sound such a kind of forceful movement, and absolutely, I think you kind of put your finger on it there. And it really brings to mind for me aviation and the really important role aviation has to play in this story. And Julia, this is absolutely your world, your topic. And we had, again, a very good conversation about it this morning. And I'd love it if you would just talk a bit about how aviation's really transforming to be part of the solution and what you're doing to support that as part of Clear Skies Fund.
So firstly, good morning. Glad to be here. Let me make at the start a very important point, and I heard it from Catherine before. Aviation is a force for good. It's incredibly important for our economies and culture globally, and that point often gets lost in the sustainability debate. I hear well-intentioned people take radical positions saying stop flying completely without fully realizing what the consequences are. They would be absolutely devastating, economically and culturally for most countries. So I thought that's an important point.
It is.
So the real question we must answer is not do we stop flying or not? It's about how can we transform aviation to become sustainable. And that's what I'm dedicated to in this phase of my career, along with my partners in Clearsky. It's a tremendous task and it's a huge challenge, but it's possible, 100% we say. Aviation has a clear goal to reach net zero by 2050. The technologies, the innovations exist actually, but they must be deployed at a much greater scale. They must be commercialized much more effectively. It takes an orders of magnitude change. It's difficult, but it's possible. And we see that aviation is transforming slowly but surely. And now sustainability is on everyone's agenda, the governments, the airlines, and very much the general public. So now let me be a bit more specific on the solutions. At Clearsky, we believe that sustainable aviation can actually be achieved by a mix of technologies, innovations, and projects. These include sustainable aviation fuel, new lightweight materials, alternative fuel sources, new propulsion systems, the use of more solar energy at airports and anyway across the entire supply chain. and greater coordination of flight passes. There's a lot in that, and AI can be used in that. So it's a mix of things. There's not one silver bullet, there's 100 silver bullets, and each of them plays a role in reducing emissions. And the net result of these multiple actions will actually create the result.
Okay, that's really helpful. And again, that real theme of sustainability plus technology is where we're going to get to in the future.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
And I must say, we have seen the technology exists and the innovation, but they need to be deployed, and we need the funding to really bring them to scale.
Yeah, okay, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit, because I think that's, again, an incredibly important point about how do we get to that place. But Nikolaos, how do you see some of the things that Julia was talking about? How do you see that reflected in the work that you're doing with ICF?
So, Julia, I think I agree with most of the things that you said, and it's true that aviation is doing tremendous efforts and maybe way more than the rest of the tourism industry is doing in order to decarbonize. And that is because, of course, it's one of the biggest emitters, right? ICF is working on aviation, travel and tourism as one division, so we can see the nexus that exists amongst aviation and tourism. And actually we work with WTTC currently, with the World Travel and Tourism Council, to identify what is the role of the rest of the tourism ecosystem, so beyond aviation, beyond airlines, beyond airports, beyond producers of aviation fuel. What is our role as accommodation sector, as tour operators, as travel agencies, as technology providers in supporting the uptake of sustainable aviation fuel? Now, Julia mentioned different solutions. However, we need to understand that here, and this is a challenge of sustainability in general, sustainability is to find the balance between the environmental impact, the social impact, and the economy, right? However, the economic impact, which is like the short-sighted and what businesses usually are, especially for-profit businesses, are usually looking into first, is in conflict with the other two many, many times. And we see that why maybe technologies exist, but they're not taking off already. So, for example, solutions as electric flying or hydrogen, they're very good solutions, but they're only for short distances. What happens if you're Australia? You want to attract your source markets that are from the US, or they are from the UK.
All your long-haul stuff.
Exactly. So you have problems. The only viable solution that we see up to 2050 is sustainable aviation fuel. There are other solutions that we need to be working in parallel, but sustainable aviation fuel is the only one that is viable. But it exists in so many, in short amounts that we cannot really do any impact. I think WDDC was also mentioning that yesterday. So we need to help as tourism stakeholders, aviation in their efforts to uptake SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. We need to show that there is a demand to demonstrate why the economics would work.
Make the business case.
Yes, exactly. So from the aviation point of view, this is it. Then we have very big things to discuss about tourism, the tourism side, and how we understand sustainability and invest in things. But for now, I would say that I agree, but there is a big challenge. Like, I'm optimistic, but I'm also, I want to warn the audience that we need to work on it. We need to support aviation.
So I think it's really interesting because you kind of bring the whole cycle together, don't you? So you can see the impact and see all the steps that need to be taken in the right order. Fascinating. And actually, Suzanna, as in your role as kind of head of Amadeus Ventures, I'd love to hear some. We've heard we're at the start of the journey. There's a lot to do. There aren't that many. There aren't loads and loads of technologies that are actually in the position to make a huge impact. But what are the positive difference that you've seen from impact investing? Can you give us some examples? And can you talk a little bit about what it is that investors are looking for from sustainable businesses?
Sure, happy to do that. So maybe one step back, not to talk a little bit about who is Amadeus Ventures, to say what do we do, right? To say we are an integral part of Amadeus, the GDS Thanks, Bobby, for pointing us out earlier on. But we have expanded our business scope to say beyond being the GDS. Right? So we are also powering the IT capabilities of a lot of the airlines and a lot of the hotels around the world as well. And we have a growing portfolio of payment capabilities under our Outpace entity. So overall, with this portfolio, so with the investment program, we want to be able to build the bridge between bigger organizations and the startup communities and be able to contribute to their growth strategically. So we only make investment if we can add value into those companies. So that is how we have structured and have been doing the program since year 2013 when we made the first investment. In year 2021, is that we started to add sustainability as one of our investment themes. So within the portfolios, so on top of monitoring technology trends, we realized that sustainability is a subject that can be that we can contribute to as an investment program, to Amadeus and to the industry. And so as of now, we have 2 investments in the space. One is called Chiu, is a Norwegian company. They started off as a climate tech company, helping enterprises to introduce carbon offsetting into e-commerce flows. With that, we have integrated their capability into the Amadeus Impact Suite that we've launched earlier this year. So this is an example on how we can add value to being a strategic investor. There's companies they have put a project together, they are running really well on their own with the airlines customers that they have, but we amplify their impact by bringing them into our solutions and sharing that with our customer base as well, across travel sellers, across the different segments that Amadeus also have business with. So that's one example on how we invest in impact startup and helping them to amplify that impact. And the second example, the second company that we have invested in is a company that's based in Germany called Gkolfinopoulos. So I think echoing the points that Julia and Nikolaos has made, sustainable aviation fuel. I totally agree with Julia that there are many different paths, there are many different things that we can, as a industry, we all collaborate and contribute to. And for Gkolfinopoulos, we see the opportunity of actually staying close to this development that is needed, and is also happening very quickly. So being a technology provider, even though R&D in the oil and gas project isn't quite out of our nature, but with this opportunity, I think we managed to participate in a lot of the discussions, understand more about the ins and outs of what is the current development and discussion on the topic. And with this, it's not like that the company needs our introduction to airlines, they would be able to do that with their own connections. But we also help to maybe add a little bit of the connections to the travel industry to continue to advocate this concept.
That's really helpful. And when you're looking to invest, when you're looking at the different sustainable businesses that might be seeking impact investment, what is it that you're looking for? How are you saying, okay, that is absolutely right for us, I can see where this could go?
Absolutely. So our evaluation criteria for investment, I would say, isn't that different from a technology investment that we make.
Okay.
For us, being strategic, I would say half of our criteria will be quite similar to financial VCs. We need to look at the team the team needs to be able to carry over that the concepts that they have come up with. We look at the traction in the market. We look at addressable market. So in a way, we consider them as a business.
Okay.
Right? There's a business orientation to it. The other side is because we're strategic. The other side of the equation is the strategic relevance, and I would say that because we are corporates, because we have the opportunity to support the company and also support our customers. So this 50% per se helps to sometimes bring some of the topics forward, right? Even though maybe the economic equations is a little bit further down the road in the horizon.
Okay, so if I'm getting it right, it's kind of how is it going to perform as a business? All of the, to your point, the economic side of it, the business case, but then balanced by the strategic relevance, and in this case, sustainability would be really high. Okay, that's really, really useful to understand. And from a totally different perspective, Nico, if you could just talk to us a little bit about the journey that you've gone on with Zeero as your own sustainable technology company. What have you learned about positioning that business for investment?
Well, I'll just start off with what Zeero is.
Perfect.
So Zeero is an end-to-end solution for carbon measurement, management, reporting for corporations mainly. We have over 1,000 corporations using us.
Okay,
and we invest 50% of our... We don't charge for our technology, which is, Catherine, well done. I like that, having everything for free. It needs to be... We have a strong belief that technology for measuring carbon should be free, because if you don't have it for free, you will never achieve a standard.
Yeah.
And it's almost like having money in different bank accounts, but each bank uses a different calculator.
Yeah.
And one says, hey, you've got, you put $100,000 in, and this one says you've got $80,000, and the other one says you've got $120,000. Which one are you going to go for? So, that's a very confusing way. We need to get rid of the confusion. So our tech is free. But we also then invest 50% of our revenue into nature, but the other 50% we invest into renewable energies and biofuels. And where we have got to now with Zeero is that we've created Zeero as a co-ownership investment platform, so that our corporates and our travel partners can actually make micro investments with each booking. So to put that into context, if each booking every year was, you get 4 billion bookings from 2019, if each one was to give just $1, you would have 4 billion trees in the ground, but you would also have 60 hydrothermal liquefaction plants.
Wow.
So our hydrothermal liquefaction plants is through a relationship with the US Department of Energy and the National Laboratory. These are modular, so they can start off very small, and we get 4 types of fuels out of these plants. So we get 25% is sustainable aviation fuel, 45% is biodiesel, 16% is gasoline, and 14% is heavies, that is suitable for marine. Now, we know that if we were to put these onto every city in the world, we would be able to decarbonize 22% of emissions. But it's a huge project. Governments can't afford to do it on their own. Companies can't afford to do it on their own. And it's a collaboration that we're looking for to get the industry to actually say, hey guys, we've got a chance. We've still got a chance to hit these targets and to make something real happen now. We've got the manufacturing for the plants as well. So we've got the US government have been amazing with us. My wife Elke's actually even been into Congress and presented to 3 senators.
Wow.
And we're working with Osceola County, Orlando. Now, to put that into context, Orlando, if we were to put one of these plants in Orlando, we would be able to produce around 4 million litres a day. Now, the return on investment is faster than any other SAF production. The fuel price is the same as fossil fuel, okay, which has never been seen before. It takes 10 minutes.
That's fantastic.
Okay. And you
You're
have
our
a
solution, aren't you?
2-year return on investment.
Fantastic.
So that's what Zeero is about. But we need partners. We
and
need
how have you
people to
found
give
that
this.
journey? What have been the barriers to kind of getting those partners, or what have you learned when you've been successful and you've got the...
I mean, firstly, we're a small team.
Okay.
And I think that is
Yes.
something that puts people off. But we do tell people that we need to grow our team. We need to have. We've got a very large opportunity. There was a PLC that we worked with in the past, who was bought by another company, and their staff are ideal to take this over. But we are too small to pay for them, so we need
You need
help.
funding to actually
we
get
need
to
help.
that place.
Yeah. But the big problem with sustainability funding is actually often that a lot of it is done by fuel companies.
Okay.
So when an oil company has a great year, selling oil, they will pull funding back from sustainability. And then when they have a bad year, or they get sort of like somebody catches them doing something, you know, behind the bike
Get some
sheds or
crumbs.
whatever, they then go, oh, let's open that sustainability project again. Now, to put that into context as well, the fine that Shell is likely to receive for stopping the sustainability fuel plant in the Netherlands is actually the same amount that it would cost us to build around 15 HTL plants,
Wow.
which are modular ones, but the modular ones are small, but that 15 of those would produce around 50,000 litres a day of fuel. So you can work out the sort of like cost. So, you know, so it's about actually trying to get the industry to realise that we do have solutions.
Yeah.
We have the capability. Rather than paying for technologies to measure your carbon, use free tools to measure your carbon and invest what you would have put into that into real action.
That makes perfect sense.
And then we can decarbonise our industry.
Yeah.
And it is possible.
I think we've solved it.
So, well, it's still a long road ahead. And, you know, we feel like we can see the top of the mountain, but it's still...
Still on the horizon.
Yeah, so we need help.
To that point, Bobby, how can you build on what Nico's been saying? What support is there? What things can be learned? How can businesses like Zeero really position themselves for success? And what value is it that investors are looking for?
So first of all, we are looking for pragmatic founders, in the sense that we all have big ambition and sometimes utopia, but things need to be concrete. I very much like what you said. I'm just curious how you're making money, because you said it's free, and then you said, but we reinvest 50% of our.
The way we make money is that in our traditional model, it's $3 a tree. $1 goes to nature, local projects, and a disaster fund. $1 goes to the HTL plants. We will invest into other renewable energies as well, and $1 goes to running the business.
Okay.
But the funds are held in escrow, and it is the partners who receive the share points, which can be converted into shares if they wish, so they actually have a shared ownership of the business as well. They decide which projects get funded, but the thing is that by working together, by collaborating, and by pooling the funds together, it means that you can actually do and finish. You can start and finish a project and then move to the next one, and you can have a list of projects. And if you have that list and you work through and you deliver, you've got a tangible result that you can show and share. I mean, when you're producing something as simple as fuel, you can actually say each day how much carbon you have saved going into the atmosphere. That's scope 4. Nobody's talked about scope 4 while we're here. You know, you've got scopes 1, 2, and 3. 3 is travel, which is something that's very commonly measured. But scope 4 is what you've actually avoided.
What's scope 4?
Scope 4 is what you've avoided
what you've
putting
avoided.
into the air.
Okay, got it.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So it would be if you were going to book a plane and you booked the train, your scope 4 emissions would be the difference between your plane journey and your train journey. It's what you would have saved because you made that decision. And nudge technologies, you know, like what Amadeus do, and you know, are really important as well, because they do teach us to reduce our fuels, and we do need to measure because we need to understand where those emissions are coming from.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of companies out there profiteering out of that, and there are so many free tools. They should remain free. You know, we don't want to sell air.
Yeah.
You know, we want to fix the problem, right?
Absolutely.
And actually measuring, if you measure and you reduce your emissions by 20% for business travel, that's about 0.2% of global emissions. So we're not really doing very much, but we're churning a lot of numbers, you know. So I know it's needed, but you need to also think about how we're really going to solve it. So.
We would look at things in two different ways, B2B and B2C. I love your B2B angle, because I really think that's where the opportunities are, and I think that they are the ones that really need to change. But if you look at B2C company, where we are investor in a company called Whiskey. To make it very simple, and they would hate me for saying that, they're the booking.com of ski holidays.
Okay.
Okay, it's a unique Israeli technology. It's a great company. And when we are talking to those companies, B2C companies selling travel package, there are very concrete things that they can do. They can propose more sustainable option. When there are options between rails and plane, I'm sorry, they would propose rail. And so very different options that would be precisely sustainable option. And as you said, when we enter the conversation, people are willing to pay more for sustainable options. So on B2C, that's the first angle. We are looking for sustainable option that travelers would choose instead of increasing too much their carbon footprint. On the B2B, which for me is where the revolution will come, we take Europe. Europe has this plan of net zero emission by 2050. A lot of companies has committed to that, and they are late. But they've committed to that, so they need to make it happen. So as soon as a very strong and real technology will come to the market, they will be obliged to use them. So that's where the opportunity are. As soon as you are able to propose a real sustainable solution that will help those big corporations to track, monitor, and reduce their carbon footprint emission, you can be a very big winner. And as an investment fund, we are very much looking for those type of companies.
And, you know, I mean, as Nico was saying, it's difficult to get investment. It is, you know, it's a hard journey, and there are lots of, you know, if you've got a small team, it's hard to maybe get some of that confidence in you. What would you say?
Public institution. I would start with the public institution.
Okay.
We have in Europe a lot of vehicles like the European Investment Fund or BPI in France or KfW in Germany. It needs to come from them first. The public institution must fuel money to investment fund like us or dedicated sustainability fund to back the new technologies we're answering to this issue. But at the end of the day, it's always the same thing. Look at the US. We were talking yesterday about the AI battle. In Europe, we lost it. It's completely lost. I'm always having fun when I'm seeing the fundraising in France of AI companies where we're extremely happy. We are raising 100 million, where the US are raising 10 billion. We are not playing in the same...
It's a different game.
Yeah, it's a different game. So you want to win a battle, you need to put the money on the table.
Yeah.
So Europe is serious about sustainability. Prove it.
Okay. It's a good challenge.
Yeah.
And because I think it's really useful to get these actual practical tips. You know, Suzanna, can you tell us, you know, for businesses that might be in the audience who might be seeking impact investment or who might just want to make their businesses more sustainable, what are the kind of the first few steps that they should be taking in order to get to that place and position themselves?
Sure. I can talk to the market-facing side of things. Like, so in terms of like investing in sustainable startups, if we call them that way, there are a few angles, right? So one is like what you have said in your opening, right? To say there are data out there that suggests that there is a segment of the traveler community who pays attention to sustainability, environmental footprints, is that they are willing to pay for it, right? And so from that standpoint, it is we are providing what the traveler community is looking for, right? To build your business case as there is a new customer traveler segment, right? And then similar to technology innovation, you test and learn from it. In terms of where gives you the best responses, and what type of like environmentally friendly trip will be more appealing to them. But there's one way to look at it is on the market opportunity. That it is a new customer segment or a newly identified, classified customer segment that we want to meet their expectations and bring the experience that they look for, right, to them. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it, of course, is it comes back to compliance. Right? It's coming back to the B2B side of things. In terms of the compliance market, This is where we're seeing some of these sustainable aviation fuel projects. This really needs to kick in, right? So when we look at sustainable SAF projects, the question is not whether it is A or B or C. So, because with the volume that is being produced right now, we need 100 of the A's and 100 of the B's. Right, in order to be able to actually meet the requirements of the volume that the industry will need, to be able to meet some of these compliance requirements and also the target for year 2050. So the business case, it's there.
Yeah.
Right, and so it's about just understanding, and getting onto the journey. So once again, baby steps. It doesn't need to be all the way to year 2050 in the first goal, right? Sustainability is a big topic. It's a multi-party involvement topic, right? There are things that we can do now, and there are things that we can do that is for the benefit of the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years. So I think it is also about pacing that execution plan to say this is what we can do now. It may look small steps. It may look that it is not fundamentally solving the problems, but these are first steps that are worth taking while we learn our way through the ultimate solution.
That's really helpful. I think it's really useful to have it broken down like that. And we've talked a lot about some of the barriers that there are in terms of scaling solutions. Julia, can you talk a little bit about those? What are the biggest barriers in terms of scaling these solutions up, and how can we overcome these? Is it possible?
That's always the assumption, or I wouldn't be here. But the biggest barrier we are facing is fragmentation of the industry. The airlines by nature, and we are focused on aviation, the airlines by nature are very competitive. They operate with very tight margins, they face pressure from their shareholders, they have quarterly financial reporting. So they are not set up to solve the problem by themselves. I bring you an example. SAF will be a big part of the solution, I agree, sustainable aviation fuel. But there's simply not enough of it. We can't produce it at the moment at the scale the industry requires. So in a competitive environment, an airline will always compete for existing supply rather than investing over time to solve the issue in the longer term. So when one airline gets a big percentage of the SAF that's there, they meet their targets, it looks good in their annual reporting, but it doesn't do anything to solve the broader issue. So we need to drive coordination and alignment around a shared goal across the industry. That's really, I think, a joint theme we all have. And how can you achieve that? Governments play a role, governments funding, industry bodies like IATA, but we believe that also investment can have a very positive impact. And that's the reason why Clearsky exists. We are an independent, neutral third party, and we have deep industry knowledge, and we are well connected to the industry. So we are in a good position to encourage coordination and alignment. And as a fund, we can drive funding to where it makes a difference. So we can deploy a mix of venture capital, private equity, public equity, infrastructure investments. And as a fund, we are backed up by industry players. So when we invest in technologies, it sends a very positive signal to other investors. And we believe that this has a multiplier effect for the initiatives with the biggest potential, with most potential. And we call that catalytic capital. So this is really then a catalyst to alignment coordination. So we can drive change by connecting the demand side and the supply side. As a fund, we are well placed to do so. And all the conversations we are having confirm that. So there is a way forward, but that coordination and alignment, targeted investment, unless otherwise we end up with 1,000 hydrogen companies, no SAF companies, we are missing feedstock, we are missing logistics. So it needs to be coordinated across the chain to achieve the result in the end.
May I just
Go
say
for it.
something?
I was going to come to you next anyway, so perfect.
Oh, were you? Okay, what were you going to ask me?
I was going to ask you from, just from your perspective, from the different side of the fence, what was your
Well,
thoughts?
I mean, I totally agree with Julia. So it's like, this is definitely, it has to be collaboration.
Okay.
But when we're also looking for solutions, we need to remember that this is actually a global issue. And if we can provide solutions that are modular, like the HTL plants that have been created, the first one's actually being installed in Germany right now.
Brilliant.
So I was on with the CEO of the company who's building them this morning.
Oh, exciting.
And it's amazing. So the thing is that these modular plants can be put anywhere. So it can be put in, like you could have one in Bali. You can have one, I mean, we've been in discussions with Melia Hotels in Mallorca because they have a waste issue, because we're taking biomass, which is not very sexy, sewage, and also food waste, agricultural waste, all of these sort of things. But island communities are great for these small plants, okay, which are inexpensive. And they can be installed, they can be plugged in, and 10 minutes later, you've got fuel coming out the other end. I mean, it is literally, it's mental, it's madness. But the thing is that if we can use this as an opportunity to not only try to resolve aviation, but also resolve marine, rail. Rail still uses a lot of fuel, and marine as well. But you get 4 types of fuels out of these. The other thing you do is you give energy independence to locations that have never ever had energy independence. So when you talk about ESG, you're covering the whole thing, and then we add on the nature side, because we think that nature is hugely important to actually resolving these issues, because part of the reason we're in the mess we're in is because we ripped out half of the trees on the planet, and we didn't put them back. And it's like, okay, well, whose idea was that? You got to think about things, and we really have to engage with nature. And if we're talking about travel as well, 82% of travel destinations relies on nature. Yeah. And we're just taking it out.
Yeah. So it really is collaboration across
have
industry
a holistic approach.
and destination.
It's got to be a holistic approach. And
yes.
the thing is that whilst we're talking about aviation, and aviation can't afford to decarbonize itself, that's where, again, we need not only collaboration through corporations, we need collaboration through different sectors. So the hoteliers should be saying, okay, do you know what? I'm going to add a couple of euros to the folio when people check out, and we're going to put it into the Zeero fund if it was us. And then basically those funds are then pooled and put together. One thing that you mentioned, Bobby, is B2C. It's my dream to actually release a consumer credit card, so that when you go and you do your grocery shopping, instead of us taking the exchange fee into our own pockets, we could create the Zeero card. You go, you do your groceries, you actually pay for your groceries, and you don't only invest into the future of the planet, but you actually are investing into your pension.
Okay.
So, but we're not at the stage of that, because we need to be a public company. We need to have FCA regulations. FCA is actually a client of ours, so which
very
is quite
strategic.
nice. Yeah, and so is National Grid. So we actually do the carbon management for National Grid in the UK and the US. So these are the kind of like companies where we do have muscle.
Yes.
And they do spend a lot of money with us, but they're just not big enough still. So
I think visionary and pragmatic we're seeing here.
Yeah, but just one thing which is, I think, missing in our conversation: education and transparency. What I mean is, we're talking about B2C. The next leaders are young startups today. They don't know anything about sustainability. They don't even know what's the EU framework of Article 8 and Article 9 SFDR. And I really challenge you, try to read it. It's
Okay.
impossible to understand. I mean, you don't even understand what is expected from you. So there is still a lot of education to do about basically what are the criteria.
And is anyone doing that education? Is there a body out there kind of unpacking this? Apart from ChatGPT, which would be my go-to, I just put it in, tell it to explain it to me as if I'm 5.
So
AI.
Yes.
yeah, no, but that's a big challenge. But as you know, we are adding regulation and regulation and regulation. But the question is, first of all, what is expecting from us, and what's the outcome?
Okay.
I can understand the outcome very quickly, but what is expected from us, this is not so easy. And I would like to give very concrete example.
Yeah, please.
Many of the companies we are working with, if we ask them to fill in the ESG reporting that is expected, they won't be able to do it. They just don't know how to do it. They don't even have the means to do it. They don't even have the team to do it. So we need to think very practically speaking, what is doable and what is expected. And now, if you want to bring the young leader who are really going to be the next Booking.com, I mean, all the big players, they need to understand what what is expected from us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And who should educate them? That's a big question. I don't know who should educate them, but there is something that needs to be done here.
I guess it goes back to the point Julia was making around fragmentation and the need for there to be a consistent sort of way of viewing this and everybody working together. Yeah,
Can I
go
just
on,
say,
Nico.
sorry,
Go for
I know
it.
I'm
No, I
tell me
love
to
it.
shut up when you're ready.
I will.
But you know what you're saying is about education. Now we're here at a travel summit,
Yes.
so education for the traveller should be from the booking engine, which Catherine mentioned earlier about making the right choice. But it should be at every single step of the journey, and every step of that journey should be making a contribution towards decarbonising their industry, because hotels are going to be pretty useless if you take flights away. Okay, they're going to be, especially if you go to islands. I mean, if you go to wherever, even Greek
Yes.
islands, if you can't get there by plane,
Yes.
then well, what are we going to do with the hotel there? What's the point?
So are you saying that we need to just normalise this as part of every touch point
Yeah.
within the journey?
Yeah, it absolutely should be. Every single element, it should be from the booking to insurances to transfers to, and it needs to be kept simple. And the tools need to be something that are simple, but then you need to also report back in a tangible way with a proof that you have done what you have said you're going to do.
Yes.
And that news is good news. Doesn't need greenwash, but if you reduce X carbon, X tons of carbon, X thousand tons of carbon a day because you've installed a new plant, shout about it.
Yeah.
And I would like to say this is exactly what we've been discussing, right? Is where are the investment opportunities? Is that we've just seen 2 examples of market opportunities where we can bring new values propositions into the market, into B2C or maybe even B2B. Right, it's like so I've seen the companies focusing on providing ESG measurement software to SMEs. Right, it's like compliance markets. It's like they don't know how to do it. Let's go and help them. So it's like
Yes.
it's like market opportunity. So it's like how can we make the booking process? It's like taking into consideration providing the right information at the right time. Like so, I think this, there are also like a few startups working on that space. It's like both for business travel and for leisure travel. So, yes, it's coming back to like investment opportunities and the way you can solve the ideas. Is I think we've got just some great examples.
Can I be a little bit the devil's advocate? Because I feel a little bit uncomfortable during
Do
the
it.
discussion, because there are some topics that I'm hearing and I'm like, maybe I'm not agreeing completely, or maybe we're missing a bigger problem here. So devil's advocate, thank God that regulation existed finally, that the public sector came and said, okay, ESG framework, you need to comply, because if that hadn't existed, we would still be talking about sustainability like it's something nice, and we wouldn't be doing anything about it. Because I started studying sustainability 12 years ago, right? When I started studying, this was like already 30 years before it was part of the discussion, or in the academia at least. sustainable tourism, it's a term that it has been used so much. It's not a new thing that we're discussing now. Therefore, we are talking about finally that the regulators, the policymakers, decided to put the regulation to make the companies comply with what they need to comply on how the economy needs to run. And don't forget that we're talking now about 2050. Before, we were talking about 2030 only,
Yes.
like go 15 years ago. 2050 wasn't on the horizon. And why was that? Because we were hoping with the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs that we will meet our decarbonization targets. And we heard yesterday from Lawrence and from me that it's not only mitigation that we need to be focusing on. So where you put your money, where you invest, we need to add now the adaptation. We have to adapt to the rising temperatures. We have to adapt to what is happening. Lawrence said before, it's set in stone what will happen in the next 20 years. So guys, we will have between 2 to 4% increase. The thing is that where we will stand here. I'm just repeating Lawrence's words. But on the other side, we need to try to find solutions. So this is what we have been doing in ICF on, okay, what are the biggest challenges that is coming? The biggest challenge is adaptation. And adaptation, we should start now. It's a process that we need to be financing now in order to be ready by 2050 or by 2060 to adapt to what is coming, because it doesn't matter if you start putting plants in the islands if the islands will not exist. Whiskey is a very nice solution that you mentioned, but in 10 years we won't have snow. So I mean, we need to be to make sure that we put the investment efforts towards what would really make sense. And we have a responsibility. Sometimes we hear the tourism stakeholders saying how much responsibility tourism will take. So we are a public authority. We're a destination management organization. How much we can do? Like it's like why we have all this responsibility. However, we need to acknowledge that we need to collaborate all together to work on all the solutions that we have. Absolutely. We have to collaborate all together. We have to work on mitigation. We have to find the new technologies now. We have to fund them. But we should not also forget that this is a bigger picture here. And we have also other challenges that we need to address.
Including the travelers themselves. I was reading an article from a French newspaper, L'Éco Touristique, from some of the great people here. They shared the story of a very famous French travel company that have decided to stop selling Mykonos destination during summer.
Okay.
Because the travelers are destroying those cities during summer. Is it a good idea? I don't want to give my opinion on that. What I can say is, instead of doing that, we should educate the travelers themselves. When you go to Venice and you are leaving those huge boats with your own bottle of water and spending 3 hours or 2 hours just doing picture in the city, this is destroying cities. But if you are just leaving a boat, not with your own bottle of water, and going to a restaurant, going to buy some souvenir, visiting museums, that's fine.
So
I don't understand why cities are trying to make to turn forbidden the fact that entering their cities. During COVID, they were crying because no one was there. And now they want to close the door. That's not the solution. The solution is also education of the travelers themselves. It's not only about the big corporation. It's also about us.
So is it about a balance? I mean, again,
Sorry, I
go
dying
for
here
it, Julia.
all right, but we must stay focused on what we want to achieve, or we miss the target. So the target is, for us, aviation, the biggest polluter in the chain, net zero emissions by 2050. If it's January 51, I think we can live with that. But we need to be well on the way. And for me, an important measure to achieve that is standardization, because standardization is increasing visibility, is making things measurable. And what you don't measure, you don't manage. And it will also create part of that alignment. Then be pragmatic. Conclusion, I don't see airlines doing major funding of initiatives until they see value, they see traction. For this, we need private-public investment to really unlock the power of sustainable industry. If you invest right now, you believe experts, and that is why we have only experts in the fund, you can have wonderful returns. Because it's different than from 12 years ago. Now the world has moved and it's coming closer. So I think the return is closer if you invest in the right things. And that's, I think, a pragmatic view we have to adopt. But the money has to come.
Definitely needs a mix of public and private together. Governments can't do it on their own, private can't do it on their own. It's collaboration again.
Yeah. I have to say that I also agree with Chiu what he says, that each industry needs to remain focused on achieving, at least aviation has a plan, in that sense, and they have committed. However, we need to understand that even in this journey, like 12 years ago, we weren't at that stage, but we were questioning whether climate change is happening.
Yeah,
we were like, oh, this is not happening. This is some conspiracy theory. Up until the point that we all live in our own bodies, the heat that climate change is, and we have seen many different examples.
Some still say it doesn't exist.
But way less voices, right? Way less voices than what we had 12 years ago. So it's a process. Everything it's like a step we're working towards, and that's absolutely great. However, and I'm repeating, we need to start also talking about adaptation to what we know is happening already.
We work with the Bahamas, and on Grand Bahama, we're actually in discussion about land for the first HTL plant there. But at the same time as we're doing that, we're looking to work with Coral Vita, who are actually using assisted evolution. So they're teaching coral to live in warmer waters. And they're growing them on these things called cookies. And then when they've grown on the cookie and they're big enough, they then get bolted onto dead coral. Okay? At the same time, it's about replanting the mangroves. Okay? And this is where we do nature and tech. Nature, tech, and solution. All of the three together. And it is multiple solutions. It's not just one solution isn't going to fix everything.
So
We need so many different angles.
I think what I'm hearing is that no one can afford to sit back. Every single industry needs to go forward. It's education, it's funding from private and from public.
Collaboration.
Standardization, it's collaboration, it's everybody thinking as one world, one industry, and also thinking about the parallel path of adaptation if we, because already we've done a huge amount of damage, already we're going to need to adapt. Your fantastic charts yesterday, which I was busy taking photographs of, where I was thinking all the places I won't be able to go on holiday anymore.
No, you will.
I will.
You will, but
Okay.
they have to adapt so that
They
you
have
can
to
go.
adapt. Absolutely. I'm at my 38 degrees limit, so I'm gonna have to find the good ones. We've got 5 minutes left. I think we could probably talk for another hour, to be honest. But in the last, 3.5 minutes, do you have any kind of one takeaway each that if people remembered one thing or looked up one thing or did one thing, what would it be? Nikolaos, starting with you.
Well, I just in the interest of time, I'll just repeat what I said. It's fine what we have done already on decarbonization and mitigation. We need to continue. We need to start thinking about adaptation. We need to start investing about adaptation. We need to be working towards adaptation. Destinations, companies, investment. Don't invest in something that it won't exist in 10 years, etc. So we need to start
That's a
thinking
really
about
good theme
adaptation.
to bring in, I think. Susanna?
Yeah, totally agree. To say have a plan, to say do invest in the future, but also act now to say on things that you can do, even though you may believe that this is small steps. To say it takes a team, it takes a village. Amadeus is managing our own carbon footprint, and we want to support the industry on this journey.
Brilliant, thank you.
Focus on standardization, coordination, alignment, and unlock catalytic capital.
I loved that phrase. Again, it's brilliant. Nico?
Remember that you are a piece of the puzzle, and you do have the power to help make change.
Brilliant. Bobby?
Travel and tourism accounts for at least 8% of the entire carbon emission, which means that there are a lot of opportunities, business opportunities, to solve this problem.
Fantastic. Haven't they been amazing? I've loved listening to that. Thank you.